The J-35 Draken is one of the unforgettable legends of the Swedish aviation industry. Although it never fought in real combat, with its gorgeous look and profoundly impressive capabilities, it is one of the most admired fighters for aviation enthusiasts. Now, we are investigating the J-35 Draken, the Swedish Dragon of the skies. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel before we start, and give us a thumbs up if you like our video. To be notified of our new video, please click the bell button. Also, you can now click the join button to support our channel. The J-35, also known as Saab 35, was an exclusive combat aircraft in its time. It did not look like any other fighters, and it was more capable than many of them. This was a tremendous success when the aviation industries of many leading European countries began to decline. Before the Second World War, Germany and the UK had been producing the best fighters. But after the war, other players in Europe, like France and Sweden, began to claim this title. Because while Germany suffered great destruction, the UK was economically over. The priorities of these two countries were different. France and Sweden had fallen behind in the field of the aviation industry before the war. Now, they decided to invest more in this field. Developments in the late 1930s had paved the way for the new aviation industry strategy for Stockholm. Just before the Second World War, the Swedish Air Force had obsolete biplane fighters. So, Stockholm ordered the P-35s and P-66 Vanguards from USA, designated as J-9 and J-10 in Sweden, respectively. Yet, after the 1940 German occupation of Norway, Washington imposed an arms embargo against any nation other than the UK. Before this embargo, Sweden had managed to receive some J-9s, but none of the J-10s had been delivered. So 60 RE-2000 Falco, designated as J-20 by the Swedish, was purchased. However, Swedish Air Force needed more amount of modern fighters. In 1942, Sweden decided to develop an indigenous fighter called J-22. Stockholm realized that an independent national aviation industry is essential to protect its neutrality and the country. After the Second World War, Sweden became one of the pioneers of the jet era. In 1947, the first Swedish jet fighter, Saab 21R, made its maiden flight. It was a jet converted from the piston engine J-21. 1 year later, the J-29 Tunnan, which was the first Western European fighter to be produced with a swept wing after the Second World War, met the sky. The J-32 Lansen, which made its maiden flight in 1951, was the first Swedish-made jet aircraft equipped with radar. But the Swedish Air Force continued to acquire jet fighters, such as the Vampires and Venoms, from the UK. Meanwhile, in 1948, the Swedish Air Force requested for the development of a second-generation jet interceptor as the replacement of the J-22 Tunnan and J-28 Vampire day fighters, as well as J-32B Lansen night fighter. This was a great challenge for Saab. Initially, Sweden decided to develop an aircraft with a top speed of Mach 1.4 to 1.5. But at that time, only the Bell X-1 research aircraft had a supersonic flight capability. Besides, rapidly improving aviation technologies made Saab's job more difficult. The Swedish Air Force revised the top speed requirement to Mach 1.8 in 1956. 3 years later, now it was demanding a Mach 2 fighter. Also, Sweden was seeking a special aircraft which would answer the country's special conditions. Underpopulated Sweden was deploying its air squadrons far from population centers. Now, the new jet had to be operable from reinforced public roads used as a part of wartime air bases. This was also making the short takeoff and landing capability essential. So, the low altitude and low speed performance had to be superb. But also, the engineers of Saab would not sacrifice the high altitude and high speed performance. The Air Force was demanding that a small ground support team, which consists of conscripts, should be able to refuel and rearm the aircraft in a short time. To answer these demands, the Saab engineers focused on the delta wing design. But after a short time, they realized that to reach the desired performance with the delta wing, they had to lengthen the fuselage, which would make the aircraft extremely heavy. So, the Saab engineers decided to focus on the double delta wing, which is also known as blended wing body. This was an unproven design before. So they began to work on subscale test aircraft, the Saab 210, to prove the double delta wing design. The result was highly satisfactory. Naturally, these efforts required time. To fulfill the gap, in 1954, Sweden ordered 120 Hawker Hunter, designated as J-34, from the UK. This was Sweden's last supply of jet combat aircraft from abroad. The era of the J-35 was about to begin. The first prototype of the Draken made its maiden flight on October 25, 1955. The first three prototypes were powered by Rolls-Royce A1 Mark 48A turbojets with afterburners. The first production aircraft, J-35A, met the sky for the first time on February 15, 1958. The Draken was introduced to the Swedish Air Force Service on March 8, 1960. The production variants had the RM6B turbojet engine, a license-built model of the Rolls-Royce A1 Mark 48A. The J-35 was the first combat aircraft with double delta wings. The sweepback on the center wing leading edge was 80 degrees, on the other wing's leading edge 57 degrees. This design improved agility. The Draken was the first combat jet which could conduct the Cobra maneuver. The Swedish named this maneuver Kochparad, meaning short parade. But this was not a planned capability and was also highly dangerous. So, the Swedish Air Force trained its pilots to avoid performing this maneuver. Also, the unstable design of double delta wings was a factor which made J-35 difficult to land, especially for early versions. The pilots had to manually stabilize the aircraft during landing. Other than that, the Draken met the Swedish Air Force's requirements in many areas perfectly. By using the afterburner, the aircraft could take off from a distance of 650 meters. It could land on a strip between 530 to 610 meters. The Draken was compatible with the Citril 60, which was the first example of digital network-centric warfare systems. The J-35 was an easy-to-operate aircraft. In 6 minutes, an 8-person crew could refuel and rearm the Draken. Yes, it was a high-altitude interceptor, but also its good quick-turn ability and high speed at all altitudes gave the aircraft with a good dogfight capability. It was the pride of the Swedish aviation industry. The Draken was the first true supersonic Western European combat aircraft to enter service. Also, the J-35 was the first Western European aircraft which reached twice the speed of sound. The wings and fuselage were all metal. The nose was made of fiberglass reinforced for radar. There was a retractable tail wheel under the rear fuselage, besides the standard tricycle landing gear. Austria, Denmark, Finland, and Sweden were the users of the Draken. The last version of the aircraft, J-35J, had a length of 15.34 meters, a wingspan of 9.42 meters, and a height of 3.89 meters. Its wing area was 49.22 square meters. The empty weight of the aircraft was 7,422 kilograms, while its maximum takeoff weight was 12,430 kilograms. One 77.3 kilonewton Volvo RM6C afterburning turbofan engine provided a maximum speed of Mach 2. The aircraft had a ferry range of 3,250 kilometers. The Draken's combat radius was about 1,000 kilometers. It could climb an altitude of 20,000 meters, in other words, 66,000 feet. The aircraft had one 30mm Aiden gun and 9 hardpoints. The J-35J could carry the AIM-4 Falcon or AIM-9 Sidewinder missiles, as well as rocket pods and bombs. There were some differences between the variants of J-35. The A, B, and D variants had two 30mm guns, while the F and J variants had only one. The other models of Draken had no gun. The SK-35 and the early production variant of the J-35A had a length of 15.21 meters. The maximum takeoff weight of the models constantly increased. The first production variant of the Draken was the J-35A, whose nickname was Adam. The designation of the first 40 of them was J-35A1 or Adam Kort, meaning Adam Short. They had no radar or gun sight. These systems were fitted on these aircraft later. The J-35A2 or Adam Long, meaning Adam Long, was the later version. They had a new afterburner, so their tail section was lengthened, which also unexpectedly reduced drag. They were also equipped with the PS-02A radar. The early version of the J-35B, whose nickname was Bertel, was a day fighter and had no radar. These aircraft were equipped with the Euro gun sights taken from the scrapped J-29A and Bs. The later production variant of the J-35B had the PS-03A radar and S-7A2 radar gun sight. The test pilots of the J-35 prototypes could easily handle the aircraft, so Saab did not plan to design a trainer version of the Draken, but the pilots of the Swedish Air Force disagreed with the company. Therefore, Saab converted 25 J-35A1s to a two-seat trainer variant by rebuilding the front section of the aircraft. This model, named SK-35C, lacked armament. Its nickname was Caesar. The J-35D had a more powerful Rolls-Royce A1 Mark 60 engine than its predecessors, and it was the fastest Draken version. Sweden produced this engine under license and designated as RM6CS. The nickname of the aircraft was David, and it had an increased internal fuel capacity for a longer range. This variant could carry two 500-liter underbelly external drop tanks, while the previous Draken variants could be equipped with only one 530-liter drop tank. Like before, the initial production variant, J-35D1, had no radar, and it was equipped with all Euro gun sights taken from the scrap J-29A and Bs. The J-35D2s had all-weather capability, and they were fitted with the PS-03A radar and S-7A2 radar gun sight. Later, the D1s were upgraded to the D2 standard, so the Swedish Air Force defined all of them as just J-35D. The S-35E was the reconnaissance variant and had no armament or radar. It carried 5 cameras in the nose and 4 in the wings. The S-35E was one of the first reconnaissance aircraft equipped with an infrared camera in a pod. The J-35F, whose nickname was Philip, had improved electronics and avionics. Different from its predecessors equipped with the AIM-9 Sidewinder, it carried the infrared and radar-guided variants of the AIM-4 Falcon missile. For this reason, one of the guns was replaced with missile guidance electronics. Different from the initial J-35F1 variant, the later J-35F2 version had an N71 infrared search and track sensor under the nose, which gave the aircraft look-down, shoot-down capability. These aircraft were equipped with the PS-011 radar sets in the early 1980s. The latest version of the Draken was J-35J. Its nickname was U1. They were a modernized variant of the J-35F2s. This model also had 2 additional AIM-9 Sidewinder pylons under the air intakes and increased internal fuel capacity. The Saab 35XD was the variant of the Draken produced for Denmark. The Royal Danish Air Force designated the name of the strike, trainer, and reconnaissance variants as F-35, TF-35, and RF-35 respectively. The F-35, which was the heaviest of the Draken variants, was not a fighter but a strike aircraft. It was capable of carrying a mixture of AGM-12 bullpup, air-to-ground missiles, electronic countermeasures, and increased internal and external fuel storage. The Danish Drakens had no radar in their noses, and this caused a balance problem. To solve this problem, Saab 35XDs had metal noses and ballast. The Finnish Drakens, Saab 35S, could be equipped with the Russian Wimpel K-13 missiles, whose NATO reporting name is AA-2 Atoll. The Saab 35Ö was simply the Austrian variant of J-35D without a missile. The agreements after the Second World War had been restricting the country to have such weaponry. However, during the Slovenian War of Independence, some former Yugoslav aircraft violated the Austrian airspace. So the restriction was lifted and the Saab 35Ö began to be equipped with the AIM-9P3 Sidewinder missiles. The J-35 did not have a chance to prove itself in real combat. In the 1990 Firebirds movie, we watched the fight of 2 Drakens against the US Apaches. Unsurprisingly, Hollywood let 1 helicopter and 1 Stinger missile shut down the J-35s. During the 38 years of service in the Swedish Air Force, the Draken reached a total flight time of 766,720 hours. Sweden lost 119 of its J-35s in the accidents. The Draken's crash frequency was 15.5 aircraft per 100,000 flight hours in the Swedish service. The corresponding accident rate in Denmark was 6.2 and in Finland 1.4. Denmark, Sweden, Finland and Austria retired the J-35s in 1992, 1999, 2000 and 2005 respectively. Yet, there are 4 airworthy Draken. Fortunately, we continue to see these proud Swedish Dragons in the sky. Sweden has managed to develop many legendary jet fighters, which have earned this title without a fight. They deserve to become a legend with their unusual but beautiful appearances as well as extraordinary features. And no doubt, the J-35 Draken is one of the most elegant members of this club. Thanks for watching our video. And please don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give us a thumbs up if you liked our video. To be notified of our new videos, please click the bell button. Also, you can now click the join button to support our channel.